Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the idea of being an entrepreneur, and I think it's misconstrued. Often people think of entrepreneurship as being the context in which you're working, like you're at home or working for yourself. You're not in somebody else's building or on somebody else's payroll. But that's really not what separates or makes the distinction between an entrepreneur and someone who is an employee. Um, an entrepreneur is somebody who does not get absorbed by their culture. They demand and expect, not in, an asshole sort of way, but they demand and expect their culture and their environment to absorb them. So if you're an employee, if you're employed by a company that has its own cultures, its own culture, its own systems, its own processes, and you walk in and you just lay your soul down and just go, okay, whatever, I'm an employee now, I have to do things their way, that is obviously not being an entrepreneur. But without having to leave that job and go start your own business, you could bring an entrepreneurial mindset, which is, I'm here in this company and I have an inner culture that the organization who has hired me has to deal with. They must absorb who I am as I am, rather than me laying my inner culture aside in order to be accepted, loved, embraced by this company. So essentially, if we're walking in with the mindset of, if we're walking in a child state, and a child has no other option or choice but to set aside their own culture so they get the love, care, attention of their caregivers so they literally survive. I mean, this is my understanding of what goes on in childhood. We literally look around and go, who do I need to be in this environment to survive? How do I need to show up? How do I need to behave to get love from these people and be taken care of? And if we continue to live from that context, we do the same thing in our work environments. So that's how we become unhappy and drained of energy at work, is because we are not honoring our inner culture, and we're then disconnected from our core self, from our core energy. The same thing can happen on the other end, which is we think, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur now. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to go start my own business. And yet once you start that own business of yours, you've got to deal with customers. You have to deal with suppliers. You have to deal with people you hire. And if your context is still from that child state of setting yourself aside in order to succeed in the world, you're just going to do the same thing as an entrepreneur. You're going to lose sight of the inner vision, the inner culture that you have to bring, which is the only way you can actually be successful, really, as an entrepreneur, is you are steadfast and you are true to that vision, and you force your customers and your suppliers and your employees to deal with your commitment to that vision, which is the thing that you want to see be true in the world, the change you want to make, the difference you want to make. And if we're not doing that as an entrepreneur, then you wind up just creating a job for yourself that is just as draining, just as lifeless, just as much of a burden as it is to go work for any other random company who's doing something you don't care about. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense. That felt quite kind of searching and rambly, but I think there's some key ideas in there that are useful to consider, and hopefully you'll be able to take away wherever you're at in your work journey, whether you're already technically an entrepreneur working for yourself, but it's not feeling right to you, or if you're an employee in a company and you're dreaming about leaving and starting your own thing. Well, there is no excuse for not behaving like an entrepreneur in whatever situation and circumstance you are in right now. Wherever you are, it is possible to do that. It's just a shift of context where you're no longer giving yourself away, and you are holding the dignity, the uprightness, the expectation that you are fully yourself wherever you are, and that culture has to deal with it, has to witness it and accommodate your presence without you diminishing yourself in order to ease the tension that will arise in that circumstance when you offer that kind of presence in the world.